So we're just about to get the net in position. We're going to use a 75 metre net for the netting this year. This should give us a better chance at getting all of the fish. It's also a deeper net, which should be better for sweeping through the deeper holes that are out there. Net's been loaded into the boat, then we're going to get the boat in position, and then we'll feed the net out of the boat as the boat goes along. The net's going to go out in a line across there, and then we're going to draw it back and net all the fish. So Mike's on the lead line here, and he's feeding that out at the same rate that Sam is dropping the floats. So lead line is on the right, float line is on the left, and then the net is going to be pulled from the right to the left. David's now going to go out and see exactly where the bulk of the fish are, and we're using a 75 metre net this year. First time we've used a net of this size for this job, so it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. Every net is a little bit different. Last time we did it, we used David's 50 metre net, and it was just a bit short. It was a bit too shallow as well. This is a longer net, a deeper net, and we're hoping to get more of the fish with it. The other thing we've done different for the netting this year is that the whole lake is 30 centimetres lower. Hopefully that's going to make the difference we need in order to net all of the fish. By having the lake lower, there's basically a smaller area to net. There's some deep holes, there's some shallow bits, there's some rocks out there, and by having less water in there, we make it easier to net. This is not a flat, simple lake. It's not a lake that's easy to net. It's really quite tricky. So that might look absolutely mad, but that is a technique called silt swimming, and David is an expert at silt swimming, and he is teaching young Mike how to do it. It's a very useful technique when the silt is very deep, and the silt is horribly deep there. It's basically 3 foot of soup, and you can see that Sam is stood up in the soup and David is just flying over the top of it. So there's quite a deep hole in this corner. We call it No Carp Corner. David's in the corner there, and he's trying to spook the fish out because we can't get the net to sweep into that corner of the lake. So he's spooking the fish out to get them out into the net, while the guys pull on the net for all they're worth. No. The main objectives of this netting are to remove the small catfish and any bream that are in there. If there's some roach, we're going to harvest those and sell them on to a fishery farmer. He's also going to take all the baby cats from us as well, so they're all going to go to a good home. All of the carp are staying, of course. We're not going to be weighing the carp. We're going to be counting the carp, but this is not about knowing exactly what we've got. That's not the point of the exercise. It's just we want to get the fish that we don't want out and then keep the fish that we do want in. The other thing that's staying, of course, is the massive catfish. We think we've got 9, maybe 10 really big catfish, and they're all going to be staying in the lake. The interesting design feature about this net is that there are actually 2 different sizes of net. So the outside of the net has a wider mesh, and there's a finer mesh on the inner. This means that when we get to the final stage of the netting, the little fish like the roach and stuff are damaged less because the net is finer. But it makes the overall weight of the net less to pull, because you're not pulling a whole 75 metre of fine mesh, which is really hard work. So what they've done now is they've flipped the orientation. Yep. Yes, mate. Right, the team needs spikes. So on the right side of this net, the lead line is on the right, on the outside, and it's now going to get flipped. So the lead line goes to the left. Mike's going to tuck that under now. Float line goes to the right, and that's going to help to draw up the net from underneath. It's going to seam up the net. So there's a big arse circle hook being used there. It is barbless, but what a mess that is. You know, one of our catfish anglers has been snapped up despite using super heavy gear, and yeah, we got some absolute monsters in here to get snapped up on that gear. We will be counting the carp and putting them into a separate cage, but this is not a full stock take of the carp. We know what we've got in terms of carp numbers. We might miss a few carp, we're really not worried about that, but we haven't got any baby carp to sort through or anything like that. It's just we need to separate the carp away from the big cats, the smaller cats, and the bream and the roach. The other thing I'm looking forward to seeing in this netting is the zander. Hopefully we've got some really nice prime zander in here. I'm also hoping to see some smaller zander as well. That would be a really positive sign because it means that larger zander that I introduced, well, about 8 years ago now, have successfully bred. We're probably going to see a few pike as well, and I want to keep the pike, but I'm not expecting big numbers of pike because pike don't do well when you've got catfish, unfortunately. It's just the way it is. So I've got a beautiful little zander. I was hoping to see some baby zander here, and yeah, that's been successfully naturally spawned here since I originally introduced them 8 years ago. Lovely to see. I'm going to slip him. They're quite delicate, so I'm going to slip him over the back of the net and get him straight back. So the guys are setting up some cages now, and we're going to have a cage for roach, a cage for the small catfish, and that way we can just sort the species. So those fish are going to stay in those cages for 24 hours, and then we're going to have a fish farmer come tomorrow and take those away. So this year David's got a load more cages with him as well, different size cages. So what we're going to do, we're going to cage everything. Then if we have to pass the net again, we won't be double netting the fish, which really doesn't do the fish any good. So this way gives us a really good chance of sorting it all out first time. And if we have to go again, then we have to go again, and we'll get what we missed.
No, that one.
5. Lovely one. Low 30. Right, so we're happy with how the netting has gone, and the carp are going to go straight back now. An absolute cracker that is. So that's it. The 2024 netting is complete. Now, we're pretty confident on our numbers. We've been tracking the fish for 14 years, so every single one of our carp is named. We know exactly what we've got. And we know that the total biomass of this lake is in excess of 2 tonne. Now, did we get 2 tonne of fish in the actual netting? Probably not, but we weren't far away. We reckon that we got about 85% of the total biomass, so that's a lot of fish in one net. Last time we missed all of the big cats, which is a bit of a disaster, but it was what it was. We can only do so much. This time we saw absolutely every single big catfish that we have, and we have 9 massive catfish which average 40 kilos each. So this netting was done using the technique of a partial drain down, and to get 85% of the total biomass of the lake in a sweep during a partial drain down, it's about right. We can't really hope for more, to be honest. In terms of the biomass we've removed, we've reckoned that we've taken out about 25% of the total biomass of the lake, which is huge. 636 kilo of biomass removed. That's massive. And all of those have gone to a good home. A fish farmer has come and collected those, and that's great. By reducing the overall biomass, that means more food and more oxygen for the fish that remain. And food and oxygen is absolutely essential to the health of the fish. The carp were on top form during the netting. They were extremely lively, very, very powerful, and really quite difficult to handle. So the priority was getting them back to where they belong in the main body of the lake as quickly as possible. We have to do the netting down the deeper end, which is also the silty end as well. The priority is to sort out the fish as quickly as possible and get the fish to where they need to be, either back into the lake or into the cages for sale to the fish farmer. The other thing that was great for us to see was how quick the netting was compared to the netting that we did last year. The whole process was at least 2 or 3 hours quicker than last time. And by having a quicker netting, we're stressing the fish for a shorter period of time. And that's just better for the health of the fish in both the short term and the longer term. What's interesting is how the biomass has changed over the last 4 to 5 years. Back in the early days, we hardly saw any bream at all, but let's be honest, 250 kilo of bream in the lake is a huge amount. We don't normally get anglers catching bream during the season, but we definitely had some accidental bream captures this year. One of our homegrowns put in the wrong net by accident when we were sorting out all the fish yesterday, Yeah, absolutely stunning. So by removing 250 kilo of bream, that problem hopefully should be eliminated. The bream are always going to come back. This lake takes overflow from the lake above, and it doesn't take water all of the year, but when it rains heavily during the floods, and we did have a couple of flooding events, minor flooding events this year, which worried us somewhat, but during those events, yeah, we are going to take some small silvers from the lake above. And also, if there's a flooding event post-spawning, there's going to be eggs that get washed over as well. So we know that we're never going to eliminate the bream altogether. Once bream arrive in the water, pretty much they are there forever. But that's the nature of the game we play. Fishery management is a complicated, ever-changing jigsaw puzzle. You know, you can try and understand it as best as you can. You can fix this bit, you can fix this bit, but it's moving. You can never do it all. You can never do a perfect job. All we can ever do is our best. In terms of the fish that we've kept, obviously all the big cats are staying, and every single carp that we netted has been returned to the lake. There are no baby carp in the netting, and we haven't seen baby carp spawn here successfully since 2015. And that's due to the biomass of silvers that we've had. Now, the worrying thing for us is that we didn't see many rudd or roach during the netting. We've returned what we caught, but there just wasn't many of them. We love to see the roach and the rudd because they're a wonderful species and they do a lot of good for the health of the lake. But there were just too many bream. The bream have outcompeted the roach and the rudd for space in their slate. Hopefully by taking all of the bream out, it will give a chance for these other more delicate silver species to grow and thrive and develop. The other thing we didn't see a lot of in the netting is pike. Pike do not do well in a lake with the big catfish. They just don't. Love pike, would love more pike, but they just don't do well. What was great to see is the zander population. Now, I started the zander population with just half a dozen specimens in 2015, and they've gone on to grow and develop and are starting to reproduce. The zander are successfully spawning here, and that's a really positive sign. Now, considering the number of young zander that we returned, I'm amazed that we had the number of bream that we have, but bream are an incredibly successful species, and that's just the way it is. The next phase is the refill, and we're just going to bring that up nice and slowly. We've still got work to do around here. We've still got margins to trim. We've still got branches to pick out the margins. This is a very, very busy time for us. We just take day by day and do the best we can for the health of the lake.